All right, welcome to another episode of the LogiCast. My name is BlankaKong, and all of the suns have aligned because everyone is here. All the panelists are here. So,
Yay!
I'm joined by Mr. Esoteric Skills, Gunnar Eos, Hada Wolf, and Zeta Kaiser. So, we're gonna have a full conversation today, uh, with a full set of panelists. So, today's topic is about major video game companies acquiring other major video game companies, and what does that mean for the future of this hobby, and what does that mean for us as consumers? So, kind of what prompted this conversation was the recent acquisitions that specifically Microsoft has been making, because they recently purchased Activision Blizzard for I don't know if this is how much they paid for them. I'm not 100%. It's 68 billion. And Bethesda last year for 7.5 billion. And we don't know what that's going to mean or what that's going to do, but presumably, eventually, that might mean that the IPs tied to those companies are going to be exclusive to Microsoft platforms, that being PC and Xbox consoles. So we could see there is a future on the timeline that we can see Call of Duty, Overwatch, uh, World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, Dishonored. All these games could be exclusive to PC and Xbox consoles in the future, which would hurt people who play on PlayStation exclusively or play on Nintendo exclusively. I mean, the tides could change, right? And Microsoft could cut a deal and publish multi-platform. That could happen, but these titles could also be exclusive to just Xbox, and that's kind of lame for people who have multiple consoles or people who primarily game on one platform. And so today's conversation is going to be our thoughts on that, our thoughts on other potential buyouts, and we're going to kind of fantasy book some buyouts that maybe we'd like to see. If this is going to be the direction in which it's going, shit, who do we want Sony to buy out? Who else do we want Microsoft to buy out? Who should Nintendo get in on it, right? So who wants to kind of piggyback and continue on?
I'll piggyback off that. To go back to that Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft, I just want to be snide for a little bit, and I just find it funny that Sony is now kind of frantically in talks with Microsoft to kind of keep Call of Duty multi-platform. So it's funny seeing Sony was the big dog when it came to the PlayStation 4 towards the against the Xbox, and now that one of the arguably the most popular franchises in video game, I don't want to say history, that's a stretch, but in modern video gaming, um, it could potentially be on only one platform. So, like a little bit more information on that. Microsoft has stated that they will honor any already agreed upon multi-platform contracts with the Call of Duty franchise. So that's and also Call of Duty. So the Modern Warfare 2, as of the filming of this video, is pretty much on the horizon. That will be on the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, I believe, or I know definitely the 5, and will also be on Xbox. So the immediate future of Call of Duty is still multi-platform, but the far future, Microsoft knows what they have. They know the power that Call of Duty has, even though it's been knocked about as a brand. It's not the top dog as far as shooters. Warzone alone kind of rectified that because Warzone rivals Apex Legends in its popularity. So Microsoft basically owning Call of Duty Warzone was a huge win for them. And Sony doesn't want to see that gravy train go on someone else's boat. So I mean, to me, as a guy who doesn't play Call of Duty anymore, doesn't really care about it, it's funny to watch, but it is kind of concerning to see how corporations can just corporation and buy up all these studios and put them into like a treasure coffer, so to speak, the metaphorical treasure chest. And now it video games that used to be open to everybody are now just getting more and more piecemeal. So now you kind of have to, even more so than before, kind of make a checklist of what do I want to play, where is it, do I have access to it, can I play with my friends on it, if multiplayer is my thing, and what's the best console to own. I mean, if you had to ask me now with all these big mergers that are coming out, I'd say if you really wanted to play the latest in AAA gaming, Microsoft's kind of looking like the bigger winner. Microsoft might not they might not have like heavy first titles. I know Halo took a hit. A lot of people did not receive the new Halo well. Gears of War is in to be announced territory as far as I'm concerned. And Xbox doesn't have a whole lot. Not like Sony that has God of War, Horizon, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, like pretty solid first party titles that, mind you, are also showing up on PC. So the fact that they're acquiring these huge studios, Activision, Blizzard, I mean, that's right. That chunk right there is literally Overwatch. Overwatch 2 just came out. World of Warcraft, one of the biggest MMOs in history. Call of Duty, enough said. And everything that Activision and Blizzard has under their belt, that's a powerful move that they made. So I don't know. I don't like it. I could be a bystander in this effect and say it doesn't affect me personally, but there could come a time where it does affect me, and it sucks because I don't want to. I choose to play on a certain console. For me, it's the Nintendo Switch because that's where the games that I like to play mostly reside on. But the fact that now that's becoming more of a forced reality for people who can only afford one console, let's not kid ourselves. These things are expensive. So, without rambling too much, I've gone on a while. I'm not a big fan of it. These corporate mergers and buyouts happen all the time. Sometimes they can be good, with the case of Bungie kind of going on their own and leaving Activision and kind of being their own entity again. That could spell good things for Destiny, and Bungie could go back to the guys that we used to know making Halo-like games, or they could be Activision Blizzard being bought by Microsoft, and now we might see
Well,
Call of Duty only on one
Bungie
console.
was bought out by Sony, so
Oh,
Yeah, they
yes.
didn't stay free for long.
Right. They were. Yes, correct. Yes. Thank you. They were independent for a little bit. Sony got really jealous, like a jealous ex, and said, well, if you can buy companies, I can buy companies, and started buying companies. But when you compare Bungie, especially today, 2022 Bungie, to Activision Blizzard, I mean, they're no saints. Type in Activision Blizzard on the internet, and you'll get a lot of really grim stories. But you cannot mess with the Call of Duty IP. I don't care about it anymore, but I'm one guy in a sea of other guys who fucking buy that game day one, minute one. So yeah, to me that merger, that buyout, if you want to measure proverbial buyout dicks, is not on the same level. But thank you for that. Yes, but yeah, that's my piece. I'll ramble all day. Who wants to take it off?
Well, I'm just gonna keep this really short, because it's a lot of logistics that go into this. But my biggest concern is, and I'm gonna preface this with saying companies like Microsoft and like Sony, they have been acquiring other companies for quite some time. Um, my biggest concern is that once they have these companies, which they already do, what are they going to do with it? Because one of the things that I remember was Microsoft acquiring Rare for quite some time back. I think it was before the 360 or something like that. And I can't even think of many games that they've done with that company.
They did
Wasn't
one.
it only Killer Instinct?
No, it was something before that.
It was Perfect Dark, I believe, and maybe Killer Instinct, as far as I recall, and can go back with. But that's my concern, because Microsoft has acquired a lot of companies over the course of the 360 till now, and they didn't really do much as far as I recollect. I could just be wrong, but
No, they
from
they
what I
put them in a
recall,
closet. They
yeah,
got
they've
Rare,
done nothing.
like one or two things, and then that was it.
Yeah, they've absolutely done like nothing. And prior to them acquiring Rare, Nintendo had something with Rare where they was doing Donkey Kong and whatnot, and games like that, Perfect Dark as well. And that's pretty much my concern. Like, if you're going to acquire these companies, do something with them. Have companies collab with one another, since you have all these different ones in your arsenal, but just do something instead of like just closeting them like they're just like storage.
That
or
could be
whatever.
the battle. That could be the tactic. Shut the company down. You
Um,
acquire it to shut it down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Wolf is right that is 100% a tactic they use.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll keep mine short. I don't own any loyalties to any company. Whatever console The Legend of Zelda is on is the console I will buy. That's it.
Well, I thought you said you didn't have loyalties.
To the company, I don't. To the
Okay.
franchise, I do. So if somehow Microsoft buys Legend of Zelda, which I highly doubt, I will be on the Microsoft console, whether it's 720, 960, 1010. I don't really care what Xbox it's on. I'm buying the Xbox because I want my Legend of Zelda. But other than that, the video games that I play, I don't think Sony and Microsoft can even come to afford Nintendo. So I'm fine playing on the Switch. But that's just me. That's
Nintendo
just
has
me.
to kind of like either just get like just like we're out of the console making business. How much you want to rent our IP? Who wants to make a Mario?
Exactly.
But Nintendo's not doing that.
No, they're not. They could, but they're not doing
They
it.
I
could.
mean, even if they
Right.
did, no, because what you call it is owned now. Before they got bought, they could have just been like DC, where it's like whatever, we'll just rent stuff out. This is all ours. We'll just rent it
Well,
Right.
out.
let's not get too
Well-
crazy because it's already happened. They've already collaborated with Ubisoft for the Mario and Rabbit games.
Right. That's what I was saying.
So
That's
it
exactly what I was
could
going to bring
happen.
to.
Yeah, it could
Right.
happen.
I won't never say that a company cannot be bought out ever, because anything
Or
can happen.
that's
Stocks
not a
can
buyout.
fall.
That's
Things
just them
can
being like, we
change.
like what you make, so here, make this.
Well, what
It's not like Nintendo hasn't done that before,
right? What I'm
even before the
saying is
Mario and
just that.
Rabbids.
What I'm saying is just that I feel like Nintendo exclusive IPs or main IPs are too strong, or the company itself is just too, like, they're solid. Like, I don't think they won't need to be bought out by Sony or Microsoft for a while. I mean, right now the Switch is the leading console. At least I know for England, it's the leading console, or Europe, it's the leading console. I'm not sure in Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if it is in Japan. And I think in the West, it's either second or it is the leading. So obviously, Nintendo is pushing games that people are buying. Nintendo is pushing titles that people are buying. I'm sorry, but I get my joy and my fill on the Switch. Persona 5. I could have been played Persona 5 on the PS4. I could have, but now I own it thanks to Esoteric on the Switch. And to be honest, I don't have a reason to load my PS4 or PS5.
Yeah.
I really don't. So whether Sony starts losing IPs, it's a shoulder shrug to me. But that's me on my personal, like Gunnar said, that's me personally compared to a sea of gamers who have different opinions and different point of views. Some gamers may be very upset that, they play Persona 5 on a more expensive console, whereas now it's on a cheaper console with the same exact experience. So it sucks, but that's business. I'm kind of numb to it at this point. Like, I'm numb to it. Like, Capcom will always have Street Fighter, so I'll know where I'm going to get my Street Fighter. And chances are it's going to probably be on whether it's PC, Xbox, or one of the PlayStation consoles. And that's probably why I have my PS5 still. I'm waiting to see how that game is going to be. But I don't play Call of Duty. I don't play anything from Blizzard. I've never loaded a game from Blizzard. I'm not interested in loading a game from Blizzard. So I really
Liar,
don't
you
care.
played Overwatch.
Oh, that is Blizzard.
Yes, it is.
Exposed.
Yeah.
Liar.
Yeah. Okay. You got me on that one. But I'm not interested in playing Overwatch 2. So there is no reason for me to say, okay, well, Overwatch is going to remain a non-exclusive title because that was in the mix before the contract, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so that's going to remain. But like Overwatch 3,
Yeah.
eh,
Oh, I don't
you
know if we can
know,
make it that far, but yeah.
you know, and whatever other games that Blizzard push out moving forward. It's not like AAA title games they don't tickle my fancy. So the
Too high
very like
competition.
the small, how can I put it? I'm very old school. I'm very stubborn. So I like sticking to what I know. I know that if I buy a Mario game, it may be mundane, but in the end of the day, I'm getting a solid game. If I buy a Legend of Zelda game, it may be repetitive, but I'm getting a solid game. Metroid, solid. You know, like these games that they push out are Smash Brothers, solid. It's the same game, but it's really that does every new iteration is just solid after solid after solid. So I don't really need. It doesn't phase me that Call of Duty is going to be one console eventually or down the line. Okay, but for everyone else, I hope that they can think it through on what games is really important to them, what franchises is really important to them, and start following the franchise and not so much the company. Like you have Sony heads, you have Xbox heads. Let go of that and start valuing whatever franchises that the companies are pushing out, because those franchises can obviously be jumped anytime between both consoles or between both companies. And if you really love that franchise and you really want to stick with that franchise, then you're going to make that financial decision to purchase the console that the franchise has moved to, or you can just own all the consoles over time. Take your time, save your money, do what you have to do, whatever, and buy all the consoles. So it really wouldn't matter where. I mean, but you got to be a serious gamer to do all of that. But
Yeah.
if you want to play it super safe, that's the best thing that I can say for you to do. It's a sad reality, but it's just how business works. Some companies, they come into a financial struggle, so they have to take these contracts. Some companies feel like it's the consoles or the company that owns the specific console has a better console for them to do more. So they jump to that. Like I believe that was a situation with the GameCube at one point where I forgot what game it was. I think it was Resident Evil 4. The reason why they went with the GameCube on Resident Evil 4, I think, is because the when they was making it, they were saying that I don't know if it was the controller of the GameCube or the style or like the processing power of the GameCube, something with the GameCube, why they chose it, why they chose to go with one of the reasons why they chose to go with Nintendo on dropping Resident Evil 4. I'd have to research that before I can say that's a solid scenario, but I believe it had something to do with the console. And I've also heard video game companies saying, well, we went with this company because we feel like this console can control our creative aspirations for the game. So it's like, sometimes companies do it because they feel like they can get a better game or put a better game out for their players. It's so many different perspectives. So many different perspectives.
I mean, that's how PlayStation got started.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
That's how
the
PlayStation got started.
N64 was the cartridge. It's like, well, we'll get way more out of this disc that could hold freaking 700 megabytes, so we're going to go with this.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
Well, that was also because like Nintendo shitted on them because they were supposed to collab, and Nintendo decided to go with Panasonic, if I'm not mistaken.
And we saw how that turned out.
Yeah, it turned out to shit. And also, if I'm not mistaken, Wolf, in regards to RE4 being exclusive on the GameCube, I think it was because the director of RE4 signed a contract with Nintendo. As far as I recollect, what was his name? I think it's Shinji.
I don't know none of these Japanese people name.
I think it was Shinji.
Miyamoto. That's what I know.
I don't know if Shinji Mikami was behind RE4, but
Yeah.
Shinji Mikami is
Okay.
the original Resident Evil developer.
Yeah.
I'm hazy on the details of RE4. So
I think it's because he signed a contract with Nintendo in regards to that. But the GameCube did have, although a lot of companies didn't really utilize it, the GameCube for its time did have a lot of power. So that could have been another factor as to why they went with it. But yeah, that's just my main concern. Like they're acquiring these companies and doing nothing with them but shelving them. And yeah, I guess that's beneficial to, the company that's acquiring them, but not that they should care because it's all about the money with them, but for their gamers, their consumers who are purchasing their items, because I mean that's pretty much the reason why most people acquire their systems, is because of the games that are going to be on it, the lineup. And for you to just take certain companies and not do anything with them, and people are expecting you to produce something with those companies that you acquired, and by purchasing that system, it kind of sucks, but as you guys stated, it is business. I think in this day and age, you just got to go by uh, what's potentially more affordable. Because one company that could be here today that you bought an Xbox for could no longer be here the following day. Like, Halo exclusive for Xbox, and the next thing you know, they make a deal with Sony, and now Sony has them, and now Halo is on the PlayStation. A lot of shit goes down like that. So I think you just have to just pick your poison. I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard because back with Nintendo and Sega, we had many different exclusives. We had games that we knew for certain were going to be on those systems, and they continued to be on those systems up until well, Nintendo continues to do it, of course, but up until like Sega, where they had the Dreamcast, and that ended up flopping for reasons. Yeah, like we knew which systems to acquire. We knew Sonic was going to be on Sega. We knew Mario was going to be on Nintendo, and people bought their systems according to that. But now,
Now they're together in the Olympics.
yeah, they're together in the Olympics. They're fighting each other in Smash, which is great. But it's like in Sonic's case, you got to pick, like, okay, am I gonna go with the Switch because Frontier is coming out, and I believe it's gonna be on all consoles. So are you gonna choose the Switch where you can play on the go, or are you gonna go Xbox and PlayStation's route where you're graphics hungry and you want to see like all the hairs on Sonic's back and shit? So
Well, if you are those interesting people who 60 frames per second is everything to you, then
Don't
you're
talk about
not
your
going to
friend
pick
like
the
that.
Switch. I didn't, not just him included, but I mean, like, there is a interesting group of people who feel like a game isn't a game unless it's running on 60 frames per second, unfortunately. Um, so those people aren't going to buy the Switch version of Sonic Frontier if they're Sonic fans as well. So they already know what console they're going to pick it on, or PC maybe. I think PC would be the strongest
Yeah,
platform to
Yeah.
play the game on.
Yeah.
Well, I think PC is the strongest platform to play any game on.
yeah.
But so it, again, like I said, there's different perspectives, and you have games like Sonic that is, that's inclusive. It's on all three consoles. You can, pick whatever you like, and whatever games come on that console is the cherry on top for you. But then you have games like what's gonna eventually be Gears. Well, Gears of War was always an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
Like maybe future Call of Duty games, maybe. If future Call of Duty games become exclusive to Xbox, well, people like, say, my younger brother, who did trade in his PS4, his extra PS4, and put money on top of that, and did purchase a Series S or Series X or whatever that is called. He jumped. So he's fine. He's one of those people that's like, well, he was in a financial situation where he can jump consoles, and so 3 years from now, if he still plays Call of Duty, the next Call of Duty that come out, if it's exclusive to Microsoft, he's fine. Not everybody is in that situation, especially due to the economy we're coming out of and recovering from. So I feel for those people, but my only advice to them is, again, prepare yourself on, following the franchises that you like, not necessarily the company itself that's different, that's being pushed out, that's pushing out the franchise. Follow
Yeah.
the franchise.
But even
I
with
think
that,
you'll eventually start making financial buys or financial purchases that's best suits your gaming needs or entertainment needs.
but here's the thing with that logic though, like the franchises are associated with the company that creates them. So ultimately, wherever the company goes, whoever acquires it, that franchise is going to go along with it. So it's kind of pretty much the same thing, if that makes any sense.
So let me clarify. I understand Activision is the company responsible for Call of Duty, but let me clarify. If Microsoft is going to be the main publisher for Call of Duty games and no longer Sony, then and Activision isn't going to put it on Sony consoles anymore, then if you were playing Call of Duty on a Sony console, is Call of Duty, the game itself, worth jumping to the Xbox? If you, as a Call of Duty player, feel like this is a game that you gotta have in your repertoire to play, then you have to make that decision. Okay, well, I can't stick to Sony anymore. I can't logically stick to Sony anymore. I'm not getting the game that I really want to play. So you have to make that jump eventually. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Here's what I'm concerned about, and it kind of.
Before you go
that's
on,
right.
good
You
sir.
never got to like.
Well, I don't have that major. I don't have major points to make, anyways. My points will probably come later, depending on where we get in the conversation. But as far as what Wolf is saying, I would say that what Esoteric is saying isn't wrong, but also what Wolf is saying isn't wrong. But I feel like what should be even more clarification is what you should look at is who are the teams that are making said game that you like. So
That's a good point.
So
Yeah.
fuck. Gunner, help me because you know
Yeah.
the two teams in
I
Call
don't
of
know
Duty.
that team.
What you
Fuck.
talking about? Treyarch, Infinity Ward.
Yes,
Treyarch,
exactly.
Infinity Heads, and
Yeah.
Raven
So
Studios.
just because like Activision Blizzard has, or Microsoft, I should say, still has Call of Duty, it may not be Treyarch, or it may not be what was the other one?
Infinity Ward.
Infinity
It
Ward.
may not be them that are making it. So they could just be using the brand name of Call of Duty, but not the team that made the Call of Duty that you actually liked.
Mm.
So that could be what they do. They will just say the name, and you'll notice this when they really want to sell something, they'll say like, "Oh, the team that made this." When they really want something to sell, they'll specifically mention the team. When they don't want you to realize that they've changed people, they'll just talk about the game. So
Okay.
you would have to be more diligent on who made the type of game that you like. Like, I don't know if there's a different Zelda team. Well, I assume there is, because not Skyward Sword, freaking Breath of the Wild, I believe, is a different team than what.
Well, Breath of the Wild is a different team but there's still only one team making Zelda games now. Like Breath of the Wild is the new direction of Zelda. So they're not gonna go back to the old style 7 dungeons, linear path.
Yeah. Well, I meant
they're not
more
doing
like
that anymore.
what you call it, but I guess that still would be a
Well,
different team, like the
Oracle of Ages and Seasons was like a
something
different
like that,
team
like that style.
from like
Oh,
Ocarina of Time
yeah.
and Majora's Mask. It was 2 different teams.
Yeah, but I just meant that style anyways. Like what was the remake we got? Link to the Past.
Link Between Worlds.
Link's Awakening.
There
Oh,
we
that's
go.
what you're
That's
talking
what it
about.
was.
Okay.
Yeah, like stuff like that type of Zelda game, but they haven't really made anything since that last one. So I don't know if they'll do anything like that again.
I understand what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
But
yeah, that does make a good point. Is what's the developing team that's pushing out the title that you want,
yeah,
and who where they're going with it,
yeah,
or
because some people
yeah,
will be there while they're being bought out and merged, and then you'll read an article or two later that says like, oh, these lead people or these creative people have left. It's like, well, those are the people who were steering the ship, and they're not there anymore. So now my faith is shaky on if the next people coming in are going to be able to do the exact same thing. And or if they decide to make their own studio, well, it's like, all right, well, I like what you was making already, so it might be a smaller budget, but I at least know what I'm getting if I follow those people.
That is true because when Rare left, I was a little apprehensive when the new Donkey Kong came out. I was like, they're probably going to mess it up, but they did a incredible job on it.
right.
I-
But you
so
had that
You had that doubt.
positive, right? You had the negative. You had the negative aspect of what your thought process was. Okay, well, you're not sure that this company is going to do it well, but you took a positive route and you tried the game anyways,
yeah,
right? And it turned out to be a more satisfying experience for you. Zeta Kaiser is asking people, the normal people,
Yep,
anyways,
those damn
to hold
normies.
themselves accountable to be diligent in researching and doing their legwork for them to actually find true entertainment,
Yeah, I know
which
that's
we
not gonna
know,
happen.
right? That's why Twitter exists, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
why that's why I've been silent because I know
right.
I'm not gonna get nowhere with what I think people
But
should do.
I don't disagree with your game plan. And like I said again, I feel like you should be that diligent. Why not? You're spending money. You're spending money you can't get a refund on. So why not be that diligent? Why not just do your research,
Because
make sure that
people
it's a
people
team
want things to be
that's
simple. They just want
yeah.
to
yeah,
pay for the product and have
and
fun.
give it, yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
You know.
All right.
Yeah, but you were saying Kong.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that concern me, and I think you guys touched on it a few times throughout this conversation so far, is all these company buyouts. Is it going to affect? Well, I already know the answer to it, but is it going to affect the quality of those franchises? Right. So
Hell
let's
yeah.
say hypothetically, Sony buys Capcom, and they have
Hmm.
access to Resident Evil games, Street Fighter games, Monster Hunter games, all that, right? Like, does that now there's going to be a head to the head, right? So whoever kind of controls Sony, they're now controlling whoever controls Capcom, and they go, well, we don't like the direction of the Monster Hunter games. We prefer if there was more monetization, right? And we get like a whole Dead Space 3 situation with Monster Hunter, or something similar to, let's say, the Resident Evil games, right? And that's what worries me. It's like, ugh, like I don't mind jumping ship, so to speak, from one console
Right.
to the other. That doesn't bother me. I don't really care. But what I care about is the experience of a genuine, authentic experience of what the game or what this franchise is supposed to be, and is that in jeopardy because of the new way to do business today's gaming industry, like the free to play models and
Battle
the
passes.
battle passes and the gotcha and all that. Like I hate all of that, and I
Yeah.
don't want to
So
see that stuff invade some of the games that I do play. So that's something I'm concerned about that could come to pass if companies keep buying fucking other companies out like it's a game of Monopoly.
so Kong just presented a scenario using Monster Hunter, which is a nightmare. So I may lose sleep tonight because that is a possible scenario.
You're welcome.
And um honestly, at that point, much like Gunnar said in the podcast about Monster Hunter monetization, if you don't like where the direction that the company is going with that franchise,
Walk away.
I'm afraid that we're just gonna have to let it go. That's my only solution to it. I don't. I'm. That's pretty scary to know that the video game that you love so much, or a franchise you love so much, it being bought out, and now the direction has changed to whether it's to fit certain political views or
Monetary views.
monetary views, or just scrapped in general, right? Like how long they should be another Killer Instincts by now, on how successful Killer Instincts was,
You would think.
but there is none, right? You would think, right? Like they gave us what? They gave players 6 or 7 new characters in Killer Instincts and then just dropped the game. I don't think Rare has pushed out anything past Killer Instinct.
I
And
don't think so.
that would be so scary that Capcom gets bought out and he just drop Monster Hunter. Or they like, okay, well, if you want to fight Rathalos, it's $5.99.
You won't have to
You
pay
know,
for Rathalos. You have to pay for freaking the gold Rathalos, whose armor will be greatly superior.
$7.99.
Yeah, you can have regular Rathalos, that's free, but gold Rathalos now.
Yeah,
With the
like
Well, we already know that the armor doesn't make the man.
silver
So
Rathalos, I should say gold Rathalos.
right, but that's the thing.
I know it's
Not
just
diverging, not going off topic, but
yeah,
it's not about whether the skill the player has. It's about the opportunity that the player has to buy their way into success,
Yeah.
right?
Or not even that, just you just can't do it. Like before, well, of course, since going back to Call of Duty, where uh Gunner bought all the maps, so this wasn't a problem for him, but it was a problem for me for the few times I tried to play Call of Duty with him, where if you didn't buy the map packs, you just wasn't in the queue
Yeah,
for the other maps. So
we'd had to play. I would either have to uninstall the map pack to kind of remove them, or we would have to play like a basic queue that had, I guess, the base maps. So at the time, yeah, I was one of those guys. I bought Call of Duty every time it came out because I genuinely liked the game.
Mhm.
And yeah, we had that problem where I would buy the my packs because I like Call of Duty. I want more Call of Duty. And I could say, a map pack, well, that's a new area to play. It's a map. It's not play to win. So I'll
yeah,
do it. But Zeta just wanted to play with a friend, just wanted to play with me. He didn't really care about COD. So it was enough for him to buy the game. He wasn't going to drop money on the maps. So I'm not going to like, hey, buy the maps or you're not my friend anymore. I'm just like,
not
it's
talk to
like,
you in school.
right, but it's like, okay, well, now I can't play the new maps with my friend, but I'm not gonna make him buy the new maps. So when we played together, the few times we did, we never played the new maps. So yeah, that yeah, and then COD started adding pay to win guns and loot boxes, and then I was like, to Wolf's point, I was like, sayonara, comrade. This is where I get off the ship, and I haven't played COD in like 3 iterations of COD.
Well, yeah, because the companies took a new direction into how they want the games to play, which Blanca did make a good point. Like if COD becomes exclusive to Xbox or to Microsoft, then Microsoft right now would have financial control over, not financial control, but they'd have sole control over what direction they want COD to be. So what if guns can no longer be upgraded unless you spend $9.99 or unless you spend 99 cents, to what was it called? Where you start all your stats
what
over, but you go up a
prestige?
rank
Oh,
to
respect.
prestige.
Oh,
Right.
prestiging. Yeah,
Yeah.
Prestiging. If prestiging costs 99 cents. If you want a prestige to get better stats on your gun or for your gun to have more attachments, it's 99 cents.
Yeah. Or they go
Like
the
that's
battlefield
a
route.
scary reality, or that, like that's a pretty scary reality. Like they can now push, in the future, they'd be able to say, okay, well, if you want these legendary guns from older COD games with insane stats, it's, $2.99. Or you can buy, or they'll go crazy with the loot boxes. It's,
I mean, they already have that. You just have to play COD Mobile, so there's really no reason for
yeah.
them to not transfer that over.
But yeah, like video games nowadays is becoming more like mobile games. Like console games is becoming more like mobile games, and companies getting exclusive rights to video games with replayability. Because really, monetization affects video games with replayability more than video games that is just a straight story.
Well, that's why we don't have
Right?
those anymore, or we try to
Right.
avoid making
Exactly.
those.
Right. Other than like say JRPGs, for whatever reason, JRPGs can hit the PlayStation store with 50 fucking you know,
Some packs.
DLC stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you'll pay little things here, little things there, and
Costume
stuff like
packs,
that. Costume
level up
packs,
faster, item
level up,
packs.
exactly, all that nonsense. Like for whatever reason, JRPG games get away with it. But like Legend of Zelda, for example, like I don't like, even if they said, oh, if you want the Master Sword that never breaks for 99 for $1.99,
You
I can
paying for
get
that
through.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can get through the game without it. So it's like to need to buy it, people would complain because they're selling it. That's just that in itself, right? But games with replayability are the ones that is being affected. And this is actually a good point. So not to diverge too much, Zeta, you play Pokemon Unite, right?
Yes.
You know that right now the community is backlashing because Zoroark is being dropped for $20 the
Yeah.
first week.
Damn.
Yeah. Right? That is exactly the scary thing about it, because that is so controlled. Like there's no real way around it. Like this company can push it out. They can say you guys deal with it, whether you buy it or you wait the 7 days and you save up your coins and buy it. But he's dropping for $20, and we can complain about it as a community, but that company can do it and get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I you know, with all these companies acquiring other
And
companies
sorry
and
to cut you,
having,
but that is a video game with replayability. That's why it works, because the game has replayability to it.
but okay, yeah, but here's another thing too, right? So we have a bunch of companies that are acquiring other companies. So said company have to answer to said person and so on and so on. At the end of the day, they all have to answer to the consumers. And what? No. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, I'm not saying that it's ever going to happen because people are susceptible when it comes to new shit and they can't hold on to their wallets because they see something they like and they're willing to pay for it. But my point still stands. If we were to band together and not accept these things, then they would have to pivot from their mindset.
So, Esoteric, I have a
It's
question for you, real fast.
All right.
Have you
Okay.
ever
Bobby.
seen the meme of the Simpsons meme of the bartender character? He's like ringing out, and there's a bunch of people like trying to give him money, and then Homer is in the next still. He's like, "Hey, you're about to lose a customer," and then they show the still again with all the customers trying to hand the money, and then the bartender character's like, "Huh?" And he's like, "You're about to lose a customer," and then you see all the same hands in front of Homer with all the money. That's the reality of the situation.
No,
You are
I've
asking
never seen it, but I do
you are
understand.
asking for a substantial amount of people to be on the same level of like-mindedness for that to happen.
Well,
And
absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is, so my thing is it ever going to happen? Probably not in my lifetime ever. Probably never. But
Ever.
that is
that's your solution,
the solution.
I mean,
right?
that
So
it is the solution, but it
It's
won't
the
happen because
that's what I'm saying.
the
It is
problem
the
is
So
that
solution.
their target audience is the normies who
right.
don't care.
Yeah,
And
who are susceptible to shit like
video
that.
game companies have put out articles saying that their video games is targeting towards bringing in new people and casual players. People complained over and over and over and over and over again about Capcom releasing in Monster Hunter Sunbreak, Capcom releasing paid DLC weapon skins. And I've been playing Monster Hunter a lot more this last 2 weeks because I knew I wasn't going to play Monster Hunter once I get Persona. And every single mission I went on, no matter what the monster was, no matter how difficult the mission was, somebody was using paid DLC weapon skins.
I may
So
die, but I'll look good doing it.
exactly. And there were times where we would lose the fight because people like blocking with their faces. And you know what? That person didn't care because they got a game over looking like a badass to them. Those people are the normal people or the normies in the Monster Hunter community who loved the design of the weapons and bought it anyway. So all the YouTubers putting out videos with their high views and their high amounts of likes, thinking that they're getting across to thousands of people who's like-minded along with them, weren't actually doing anything. There was no effect to it because every single game I played, somebody was using the Lost Code weapon DLC. I mean, every single one.
Well, they probably were effective, but another issue with like the normies and like just people in general is lack
It's
of
too much.
lack of consistency. Like they'll complain about something, and then in a couple of days, some company is going to revamp the same shit that they complained about, and they're going to pay for that. Like it's just as Zeta said, and as I was trying to like articulate, it is the solution. It's just never going to happen. You know, it's not. Because
So
at the
yeah,
end of the day, money talks, bullshit walks. Like,
so
you-
Blanca does have a good point, is that, Overwatch now becoming an exclusive game, maybe they won't do it with Overwatch 2, because obviously Overwatch 2 is on multiple consoles. But say they do a Overwatch 3, 4 or 5 years from now, that can be like, okay, well, the game is free. You pay for all the characters. Now you're going to pay for all the maps. Now you're going to pay for character skins. You're going to pay for loot boxes. Like, why? Well, the game is free. It's a free download. We can do that, right? But now everything else is all about, everything else you're going to have to pay for to complete the video game. And Blanca does have a good point in where that's a pretty dark road that, video game companies can take, and who's going to slap them on the wrist for it? Why? Because it can be 2 people out of 100 that complains and refuse to buy or refuse to be a part of the problem of Overwatch 3, but then you have 98 other people who's willing to pay to play as Tracer, who's willing to pay to play as Widowmaker. And if Blizzard makes a profit from that, then that is the direction they're going to continue to go with, because it's all about their pennies. It's all about their coins.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess they would, have to make up the difference somehow because if they were to go that route and have Overwatch 3 that's solely on the Xbox, like you're losing a big market on the Sony side because if I'm not mistaken, people overseas either have Sony or Switches. Like there's not many Xboxes for them. So they're probably going to have to do that whole gotcha system like pretty much that gotcha system in order to make up funds. At least that's the way I see it. I could be wrong. But yeah.
And you could best believe that even if the next Call of Duty and the Call of Duty after that, whatever, so on and so on, if Sony strikes a permanent deal with Microsoft to keep it on its platform, you can best believe the game will release first on Xbox. The DLC maps will drop first on Xbox.
For at least a year.
For a year, or Microsoft could say, that's the deal.
Yeah,
This shit
that's what
ours.
Sony was doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sony
Sony was
Microsoft could be
absolutely
like,
doing it.
this is ours. You're lucky this shit is printed on PlayStation 5 discs. We're getting the DLC first. We're getting promotions. We're getting the maps first because we own it. And
Isn't that
Sony
what they
has to
did
go.
with Star Ocean? Didn't Star Ocean 4 did that, didn't it? It was released on Xbox first, and then
Yes,
because that was
Yes.
the contract.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Xbox
for
bought-
Call of Duty, that's just how it was before. It was everything went on Sony first, and then it went to Xbox.
And
They both got the
and
games, but Sony got everything else.
Tomb Raider, Ninja Gaiden, those are the ones I know that absolutely did that, where it was solely on the Xbox first, and then it went to Sony afterwards.
But now with Call of Duty, it could stay on the Xbox. Or it could stay on the Xbox guaranteed 100% for a year, and then you Sony guys can get it.
Mm.
And there ain't nothing Sony could do about it because they just had to fight tooth and nail to get the damn game on their console.
Well, to go back to what you had originally started this off with about what they said, they use the legal term of said all existing contracts we will honor. That usually means later on, that's it. There is no other deal. This is going to be exclusively ours. We're just not going to say that right now.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I don't know what Sony could. Sony's got to throw around some big dollars, and I don't think Sony. I mean, they're Sony, but the PlayStation 5 has not been setting the world on fire.
I mean, even if they had it, it's the amount that they could give would probably never
No,
match what they would be able to make in sales of it just being on there. It's like, well, this is guaranteed console sales and this is guaranteed game sales.
unless like Microsoft fucking price gouges the shit out of them, and it's like a really uneven split, and Sony has to just deal with it. It's like, well, we're getting screwed on this, but we can't lose the Call of Duty fan base. We can't lose that. It's
Yep.
huge.
So they got to take the proverbial shaft.
Well, that's again assuming Microsoft wants to do it, which, like I said, they said
Yeah.
existing contracts, which to me just translates to they're not going to. They're going to make it exclusive for them because why else would they spend almost $70 billion to get it?
They don't have to unless they want to squeeze Sony for money. Like, if,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, a
I
little
mean-
extra money.
I mean, Sony Fortnite is still on Sony consoles.
It's everywhere.
Yay. Yeah, you know, so they got the Fortnite players too.
Hey, man,
Oh,
get,
if
get
Sony,
a new anime crossover. I don't know,
if
something.
Microsoft buy Epic Games and Fortnite becomes an exclusive, Sony might as well just turn in the white flag and fucking give up.
Yeah.
But
They
as
better
of
start
right
making some
now-
more kill zones.
I mean, there could be some positive that could come from it. Unlikely, but like let's say hypothetically, Microsoft. Let's say in 3 years, right? 2026, Call of Duty's exclusive to Xbox consoles and PC, right? And Sony knows this, right? It could prompt them to go, you know what? Fine, you
New
can keep Call of
IPs.
Duty. We're gonna make something new, and we're gonna be competitive, and we're gonna make a great fucking game. That could happen.
Yeah,
Right.
it's always a possibility.
So there's that. What were you gonna say, Zeto?
Okay. I was just going to say, because I forgot to say it, what's going to happen or what I believe is going to happen is what's happening now with the media companies, that there's going to hit a bubble point and people are going to realize we can't keep all of these things. Like, we can't afford to hold all of this stuff. So now we're going to have to start slashing and getting rid of who's making money and who's not making money. And how can we get rid of this? And
Sure.
And then
That-
that goes back to what I said in the beginning, where instead of just selling the or putting the company back up to sell from other video game companies, they're just gonna
Just keep it
merge
on
the
ice.
companies,
Or
Yeah.
Mhm.
merge
happen
them
too.
or put them on ice. And because the thing is, if you say, for instance, they acquire, I don't know, Sega, for example, or Platinum Games or whatever, right? Sega, let's say Sega.
Yeah.
Sega isn't really doing much for them financially. Why would they put it back on the market where, where Sony or Nintendo can pick them back up? In the end of the day, that's competition. You might as well just crash and burn the whole company altogether.
But even then, who says that they can put it on the freaking market? Because they could be like, we paid this much for it, even if we sell it.
hmm
Like, it's a loss no matter what.
No, it's gonna
Or-
be
or-
a loss.
Or
but
even now,
instead
like,
of-
who's going to buy it?
But instead of taking that, the thing is, instead of taking that loss, they're just gonna take, okay, well, who's performing within that company, or just take the whole company and say, okay, Sega teams, quote unquote teams, Sonic team, yeah, you're gonna be a part of this Gears of War team. Like, help them be their backbone while they create the next Gears of War, for example. They're just gonna merge them all together, because I honestly don't see it in a business sense where it makes sense to go ahead and say, yeah, Sony, remember when we bought Blizzard from you? They're not really making us money. You mind buying back the contract? Like it wouldn't make sense on either end. Like, if, like, as a Sony representative, I would be like, well, why would I want to buy Blizzard if they're not making money for you? What makes you think they're gonna make money for me? And on the flip side, Microsoft, it wouldn't make sense on Microsoft end, because it's like, why sell the company you spent so many billions of dollars to acquire? You're not gonna be able to sell it back for a profit, because
They're probably doing
obviously,
it for tax
right.
write-offs at this point.
obviously, the other companies are going to look into it. Well, what is Blizzard doing for you? Why we feel we need to acquire it? You know,
Sure,
so
but I don't. Microsoft is a big organization, and they do a lot more than just video games. They have their hands in a
exactly.
lot of different areas, in
They do.
tech and just just the world economy. So I think they can do what they're doing and cut their losses and be fine.
Hmm.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
I
Sony
don't
has
Some of
that
the
disagree with
luxury.
other
that.
the other
I don't
companies
disagree
are a
with
lot
that.
bigger, I think.
I don't disagree with it. I just feel like they would put, I think the first choice they would do is merge or just let the company sit there.
Yeah, I agree. What were you saying, Zeta? I
No,
didn't
I was
catch you.
saying like I think they're like the media companies I think are just like the example to have for it, where it's like they're big, they have their hands on lots of stuff, but it's like it's everything that they're buying like is just catching up with them. Like what they're spending is not matching up with the profit that they're getting, and now
That's
they're starting to
true,
slash.
but the medium is so different, right? So like let's say it costs, let's use the same budget. Let's say they make a new Gears of War game, right? Just for example, let's say the budget is 50 million, right? And they put the game out and they monetize the shit out of it, and let's say it does really well, right? Or it does okay, right? To where they can continuously update it and continuously just monetize it with DLC skins or whatever, right? Let's say another company, let's say Disney, I don't know, I'm just naming stuff. They're making a Gears of War TV show and it has the same budget. They can't monetize film or TV like these companies can monetize video games. So
Yeah.
like the business model is just different by nature of the medium. So while what you're saying makes sense, it could be a bubble, but there's just so many diverse options as far as like how you can distribute content in the space of video games versus like consumable like TV media, movies, TV media, whatever. So I think it's I see the comparison, but like it is different enough to where I think it's a you can make those investments in the gaming industry and get away with it depending on how how you produce the content and how you
Yeah, I,
monetize it.
I don't doubt it. I just think that it'll, like I said, I think it's something that will catch up to them, because like even I don't remember when this was, but like the last Tomb Raider that came out sold like over 1 million something copies, and normally that is like a good thing for a company. And Square Enix was like, this wasn't good enough.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop there. Square Enix has their head way too high up their ass. Because a million copies for Square Enix is low ball. It's very low. They are that's a company that holds all their, for whatever reason, they feel the need to hold all their franchises or any game they push out to a high standard.
They were
So
fine with
if
the sales of freaking, what was it? What was the last thing that came out? Gonna
Mm,
Trafalgar or Triangle Strategy?
triangle strategy.
Yeah, they were fine with those sales, and that was not in the millions.
Because they didn't care about it.
because they didn't, there you go, he said it before me.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
Yeah, but it
Like
still
for
costs something, so
right,
I feel
but
like they're leaving something out on what it
Yeah,
costs to make the
There's
but
game.
what
also
is
the
the
less
cost to
cost.
make
resources.
Triangle Strategy versus the cost of making Final Fantasy
Yeah, it
16?
was a lot
Right.
less resources.
You know, so that's
Well, I
why
mean, by
they
then
hold themselves
I can
because
get rid of
uh,
the Tomb Raider strategy and say about Strangers of Paradise. They're not going to say anything because it's still under the Final Fantasy moniker, so they're not going to like be out and out about how this is a failure. But I could just replace Tomb Raider with that, and it's just like this didn't perform at all.
so
And
from the last thing I read was one of their mobile games. I think it was Final Fantasy. I think it was called Mobius before
yeah,
it shut down. Right.
yeah,
That game was producing revenue for them just fine. Right. It was actually, I think, because I think the first one was some weird Final Fantasy game that they had that was like 2D or 3D sprites or some type of collector or it was
Brave
some weird thing.
Exvius.
No, not just that. It was
They had the
uh
Kingdom Hearts, they had Brave Exvius, and they had Record Keepers.
Record
Record
keeper.
Keepers. There we
That
go.
one.
Record Keepers, I think, was the one that was the highest for them at that time. And that's when we
Yeah.
were all playing Dissidia. Mobius, I think, was second to that in terms of revenue. They shut down Mobius because their expectation for Mobius did not meet the sales or the revenue that Mobius was making. And Mobius was making them more money than Brave Exvius and Dissidia was making them.
Okay, well,
And Brave XVS and Dissidia are still live.
well, they said that. That's what they said out loud. But on paper, is that what's the case? Because Mobius was the only one that's 3D. Everything else is 2D sprites.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's why they had a high expectation for Mobius, because Mobius was made with more effort.
Well, I
So
don't.
because
Well, I mean, you're probably right. They had a high expectation,
yeah,
but I also think it costs more than just like
Yeah.
to have
yeah,
2D sprites. That's literally nothing. Even if Mobius was making the most, it how much is it costing to keep the servers up, modeling,
exactly.
tweak things, and all
But
this other stuff?
that's why Sony does what they. That's why Square Enix does what they do. Square Enix is a very tricky company. But they dropped which game did they had that they dropped? Or
Babylon's
they
Fall.
had a huh?
Babylon's Fall.
Yeah, and that didn't
It fell.
yeah. Yeah, just like the actual place, right? It
It was
fell,
it was
but
historically accurate.
because they they put it out, they was expecting this, and because they didn't get what they wanted out of it, even if it does mildly okay, they're not happy with it. They're like that. Square Enix to me is like that spoiled rich brat that's like, yeah, I got a 2024 Mercedes, you know, SUV, but I really wanted a 2030 Mercedes SUV. Yeah, I know the car doesn't exist, but I wanted it anyway. So I'm just gonna crash this shit because I don't want it, and I'm gonna throw a tantrum that my rich parents didn't give it to me. That's what Square Enix is like to me. Like they want they put their games out there, and based on, I guess, the effort they put in the game, if that game doesn't meet their expectation, even if it is selling well, they're done with it. They'll let it go. So Square Enix to me is a little different in terms of, like, say, Microsoft or Sony. I don't I'm very iffy when I buy a Square Enix game because it's like, well, am I gonna see another one of these?
Yeah, but I mean, even then, they're still all kind of doing the same things. Like they're all following the. Because I was talking to Gunnar about it, how I was watching a video about the Gotham Knights and how him and some other creatives was like, this game has mechanics and systems in it, like it was meant to be a live service game, but because Avengers failed, they kind of scrapped that, and now they're left with this
I heard
half-baked
that game is
product.
not doing well.
This it's not
What?
because it had
Gotham Knights, the
Gotham
one
Yeah.
with
Knight.
the okay, the Batman
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
the Batman thing. So it's like that's kind of my point about things will just kind of just start collapsing because everybody's like, all right, I want to make this type of game because this is the game that makes the money, but then not realizing why this is the game that makes the money. They just want to copy the formula and they're just buying things up without realizing why what works is working. They just like just do what they're doing and copy, and it's like that just doesn't translate to everything and everywhere. And that's why I feel like eventually things are gonna catch up with like the money we're spending is not keeping up with the profits.
Maybe that aligns more with what BlankaKong said earlier about the suits
Yeah, it's
taking
definitely
over
them.
creative direction on the
Yeah,
franchises.
because I'm
100%.
sure
Yeah.
somebody was like, "Oh, the Avengers game is going to do this. All right, we want this equivalent with Batman." Because like there should be no reason why you're gathering resources, you having different grades and rarity of armor and all this other stuff in a Batman game. I should be solving freaking crime and
I
fighting.
really thought it was just a 3-man multiplayer story mode game. I didn't know that it was just like Avenger style resources
Yeah, I
and,
mean, if you play it
constant
solo player,
updates and stuff like that.
then it's
Yeah.
that. But if you do it with friends, or even if you don't do it with friends, it's still in there, and they think that's a hangover that they were just like, all right, let's not do this because Avengers just crashed and burned so bad. But the system is still in place because we made the game, so we got to leave it here. So you still have your green armor, your blue rarity, and everything else. Find your legendary bat stick. Collect all your
So
resources to craft better Kevlar armor.
So
wow.
dumb. I hate that. I hate that model. I think what was the first game that did that? Was it Borderlands? Couldn't have been. But that's the first game that had it.
Borderlands
I mean,
does
that's I
it.
guess the one that you would would most likely see it first, or that you would recognize it. Because I mean, technically, that would be all ARPGs
I
that
was
do
gonna
that.
say that
True.
originated like Diablo was doing that. That's like an
Yeah,
ARPG thing that's just been perverted by AAA games because it's used to artificially inflate the life of
Replay.
the game.
Yeah, but it goes back to what Wolf was saying. It was like we want you to keep playing. So how do we get you to keep playing? Well, we keep giving you shiny armors. Even if it doesn't apply to this game, we're going to put it in this game. And now you have to play with your friends, and then you can show off your armor,
And
or just show that you have better stats.
Hmm.
I mean, if you have real friends, they don't care. If you got fake friends, then
It is definitely perverse. I truly hate it.
hey,
However,
all join me on the indie side, and then
hey
this
man,
all
listen,
goes away.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
They're gonna start buying those too. Watch.
Oh hey, listen, I still got my old systems.
I think
dust them
limited run
off.
games is like we own this market. There's no reason for us to sell. We will make physical copies of things, and people will buy it at our ridiculous prices. So unless they're just short sighted, there's no reason for them to ever sell their business.
Yeah, that's my issue with limited run, but that's another podcast.
I'm joining the team of physical video games.
Oh,
Finally.
The last
Finally.
video games I've bought have
Interesting.
been
Let's
physical.
look back.
about
Let's look
time.
back at the other podcast we did a year
Digital
ago.
versus physical.
Oh.
Hold on. First and foremost, I said I didn't care whether it was physical or
Okay.
DL
Okay,
or
pal. Okay.
No,
DLC.
you actually
But
said that you
now-
understand both sides.
Right, I understand both sides.
yeah.
Right, but now
Alright.
for me, I've decided, like, for instance, I have Xenoblade 2 and 3 physical, Persona 5 physical. Those are the 3 games I have, and I have to buy. No, I have Xenoblade 1. No, I have all 3 because Kong has my copy. So you have my copy
No,
for Xenoblade 2,
I have
right?
a copy that you have to pay me back for.
Oh,
The plot thickens.
Either way, there is the physical, and I have a physical copy of Xenoblade 1, and I have a physical copy of Xenoblade 3. And then Esoteric sent me the physical copy of Persona 5. So honestly, it's not that the idea is that everything that we've been talking about video games as of recently, and everything that I've seen happening with video games, whether it's being mainstreamed, whether it's being taking advantage of consumers, with, like battle passes and DLC armor and stuff like that. I've just come to the realization that if I have the physical copy of the game, in the
You'll always
long
have
run, I'll have the base game regardless. So it just makes more sense, and I'm just starting to realize, like, this
finally.
whole, how can I put it, DLC stuff with video games is just, it's just designed to just, sap my wallet of every dollar that I have. Like, that's the main design for it. So I might as well just buy the copy one time, and if I have the base game, I'll just have the base game. At least I can play it a few years later.
I'm glad you
whoa,
finally
We got
Shout out
another one, boys.
finally listened to my old man ranting.
Shout outs to Wolf for joining the physical side. Maybe he'll
Yes.
join the gatekeeping side soon.
Yes.
Wink, wink. But I know we're kind of pressed for time, but I do want to say this. Like, that's what I love about having these podcast conversations, because we have 5 different personalities at most. So you get 5 different perspectives at a time, and it allows us to change our perspectives sometime. Maybe you might be digital. I don't know why you would want to be, but you might be digital. And then there are other times where, you shift to physical because you see that things have become more beneficial on this particular side as opposed to the next. So, I just say this to say that our perspectives will change over time, and it usually does based upon our engagement, just discussing different things. So it's good to. It's a part of growth. It's good to it's a good thing to have and be a part of. So
It's
yeah.
a good thing to convert my friends to the cult.
Well,
Okay.
ignoring what Zeta just said, I think what Esoteric said is a good jumping off point for this episode. So with that all being said and done, we got another episode in the books, boys. For those listening, thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to leave your thoughts on what we talked about, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about company buyouts and the state of gaming and where it's headed, and whether you agree with it or disagree with it. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a like on the video or dislike. Subscribe for more content. We produce podcast videos every week, so we publish every Wednesday at 12 p.m. So if you subscribe and you hit the notification bell, you'll know once that goes up. We also have social media that we post on. So we're on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. We also run the Discord. All those links will be in the description down below. We also stream on Twitch. So Mr. Esoteric Skills streams on the main channel. He streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. He's on Logical Gamers on Twitch, Logical Gamers TV on Twitch. So follow him for more content. I stream every now and again on BlankaKong on Twitch. So follow me for when I go live, in case you're interested in watching me play a game. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for a great conversation. Thank you listeners for listening. We'll catch you in the next one. Later.
Peace.